What's going on, everyone? The stock market is heating up big time. There have been a lot of great moves in both directions so far this week, and these opportunities aren't going to slow down anytime soon. As we have Jerome Powell speaking twice this week, we have the stock market on a 260-day streak where it has not had a major pullback. This is one of the longest streaks since 2000, so we're definitely going to cover that. On top of that, 64% of stocks in the market were red today. Apple and Tesla are taking quite the beatings, and all this is happening as Bitcoin just broke above its all-time high. So lots of craziness is going on. In today's video, we're going to cover everything you need to know, and we're going to go over some great setups for tomorrow. So stick with us all the way to the end, and Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, the market was pretty rough today overall, Mike. The S&P 500 had a pretty big pullback. Now, into close, it did pop back up a little bit, so it only closed down 1%, but that was still a pretty nasty move to the downside. And we saw a pretty bad pullback heading into market close yesterday. So we kind of continued down off of that bad volatility. And we saw these big tech stocks, like you mentioned, Apple, Tesla, and others continuing to drop off here to the downside, and you never want to see that. This is one of the bloodiest heat maps that I've seen in a little while. I know that the market pulls back every now and again, but man, everything besides Nvidia was pretty much in the red today. Tesla was down almost 4%, Microsoft almost 3%, Apple almost 3%. Like even just those 3 or 4 right there, I mean, that's just enough to cause the market to go red. So definitely a bad day out there, Mike. The QQQ specifically had a pretty big pullback as well. So heading into tomorrow, I think the big thing is to continue to be adaptable. I know that a lot of stocks keep recovering up lately, but today the UVXY and VIX really started to continue blasting.
And Tom, I think it's funny how you mentioned that basically the only major big tech stock that was still in the green today was Nvidia. Of course, right? You have Tesla down 4%, you have Apple down 3%, and all of the other tech stocks down quite a bit. But Nvidia is just a beast. It's hard to take that one down. But something that I thought was very interesting is, as we can see on the chart right here, the S&P 500 has been going on for 260 trading days. So that's over a year in real time without having a pullback of 2% or more. Today's pullback was 1%, as Tom said. And to some people, this felt like a pretty big pullback. But, you know, realistically speaking, the market hasn't had too much turbulence over the past year. But as we can see by looking at the historical data, it is pretty rare to see runs this long. So you can't help but think, when will this streak be ended? And if the market keeps moving like it did today, I would think it would end pretty soon.
Yeah, and I mean, if we go out to a weekly chart, Mike, it's pretty insane to just continue to see how many green days that there's been. And if we go to the daily chart, I mean, there's just there's a lot of big red candles on the chart, and some people might say like, oh, wow, I would have thought that would have been 2%. But, you know, you go back and you start measuring these, it's like 1.2%, 1.3%, 1%. There was a nasty one here back in December. Let's see, that day was something close to like 1.6%. So not quite to 2%, but there has been a few pretty big pullbacks mixed in that have been pretty nasty. But, you know, whenever I look at this chart, Mike, it blew my mind, because I would have thought there were definitely at least a couple days of 2% or more mixed in. But hey, we're on one hell of a streak, and we haven't been on this in what, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, I mean, the next closest one was in like 2017, so it has been quite a while. It's been longer than you think. And then the other closest one was, you know, closer to like 2000 or so. So it has been quite a while, and you know, these types of runs are pretty rare. So just keep that in mind going forward. But what's interesting is that one of the biggest and most influential stocks in the market, Apple, has been struggling quite a bit lately. And Tom, they just have more bad news coming out what seems like on like a daily basis.
I know, right? It looks like iPhone sales plunged 24% in China. Apparently, Huawei is like resurging over there. They're doing very well. We all know, or, you know, you should know by now, Huawei. I might be saying that wrong, but either way, you know, it's a big company over there in China. They make a bunch of smartphones. I've even seen a lot of people over in the U.S. have having some as well, like buying them online and stuff. So it's very interesting, Mike. Apple is continuing to see bad news after more bad news after more bad news. So it sucks for Apple in the short term. And whenever I go out to a daily chart of Apple, I mean, it's so rare to see a chart of Apple look like this, right? Especially like within a time frame of a few months. Usually Apple's a powerhouse. It resurges back up even through times like when it drops. You know, it's choppier. It has those nice rotations back up. Right now, it's just on a pretty nasty run, and we just recently broke that huge support at 180. So I don't know what's on the horizon. The next major supports here is around like 165, 166. If that gives out, it could get pretty nasty in the short term.
Yeah, in the same way that everyone looks at chip stocks today, like Nvidia, SMCI, AMD, and others, are the same way investors looked at stocks like Apple, Tesla, and a couple others just a couple years ago. And now it's kind of like switched. And speaking of Tesla, they even had more bad news today as well. They're like in the same boat as Apple.
They really are, and their shares were down 4.5%. Apparently, there were suspected arson attacks at their Berlin Gigafactory, which was kind of insane to hear. Now, I will say this, it doesn't necessarily sound like something that will hurt the company too long, but it is a big fear to see in the short term. And yesterday, we talked about that news with Tesla's China sales that were actually down quite a bit as well. So it seems like another stock that we've all loved, Tesla, is having bad news starting to pile up on it. And that daily chart of Tesla is looking no better than Apple, even worse. So I hate to say it, Mike, but Tesla's getting very close to major support here. If 175 starts to give out, I mean, we're going to be back into a pretty nasty range. I mean, the next major support coming up would be around like 165, 170. Under there, maybe 150 or 155. But man, it's looking bad for Tesla in the short term too.
Yep, so keep a close eye on them. They've been moving quite a bit to the downside. But Tom, with some slightly more optimistic news, Bitcoin has been rallying quite a bit. Like I said earlier in the video, it made brand new all-time highs today, which is great. But then it turned around pretty quickly and the sellers came in pretty strongly. But either way, continue to watch Bitcoin pretty closely in the short term, as well as other crypto-related stocks like Coinbase and even some of the miners like Mara or MARA. They are all over the place.
Yeah, and yesterday we actually talked about that overhead resistance. We talked about that all-time high being very close to 69K, and anytime you get close to an all-time high, you have to be careful of a pullback. This doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't break the all-time high. I still think it has potential to over the next few days, but initially there's usually a lot of selling pressure at those key levels like that.
You already know. And then we can't forget about the big man speaking tomorrow, Jerome Powell. Whenever Jerome Powell speaks, you have to listen, you have to pay attention because he moves markets. So tomorrow he will be testifying in front of the House at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So that's 30 minutes after the market opens. Pay attention. Jerome Powell moves markets, and we're in for some good volatility.
Yeah, and I'll actually have it live on StockedUp Live if you guys check that out on YouTube. So join up on the live stream tomorrow morning. I will have it going, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting questions. We can all have some fun and make fun of some of the people on there.
There we go. All right, and then Tom, you know we can't forget about the earnings either, so fill us in.
Yeah, the earnings calendar is actually pretty big. We had Neo and Target report today. They had some interesting moves. I know Target was actually blasting off this morning. Tonight, we had CrowdStrike and ChargePoint. Tomorrow, we have JD in pre-market and, oh man, Victoria's Secret in after hours. So on Thursday, Kroger in pre-market. But that's really the big day. Thursday and after hours, Broadcom, Costco, and MRVL, even DocuSign. So that's really the rundown for the week, Mike, and I really can't wait to see how Broadcom reports.
All right, there we go. Well, let's get right into some setups and predictions for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is Meta, and it's to the downside. So this one has been running in an amazing way over the past couple months, but it is starting to lose some of its momentum, and at the same time, the market falling definitely does not help the case with this one. So I will be watching Meta to the downside for tomorrow. They're rejecting pretty hard off that $500 resistance level, and as long as we continue to see general weakness in the market, I think Meta has a good amount of downside opportunity. I would love to see a break below the $488 level and then a retest of $480.
Yeah, that would actually be awesome if we saw a great breakdown under 488. I like that double bottom that happened there today, so I'll definitely have that on the radar for tomorrow. And with my next plays, they're actually pretty similar, but with the first one, I'm looking at QQQ for continued momentum down. I talked about this one yesterday to the downside, and this morning it broke below key supports, and boy, did it sell off. As soon as the market opened, it pretty much went down all morning, besides for a slight pop up whenever the PMI data came out earlier, but besides that, continued down very well today, so I'm going to continue to watch QQQ to the downside. I will say the only slight downside with this one is that end of day, we saw NVIDIA and a couple others kind of recover back.
Alrighty. Another stock I'm watching is Microsoft, and again, it is to the downside. There was some pretty serious selling pressure on this one all day long. Every time it tried to run up, it just got hammered right back down. Strong volume came in as well, and now it is close to that $400 support level. So if we see a clean break below that, especially with a continued market sell-off, this thing can get pretty nasty. But either way, I'm going to have a close eye on this one to the downside tomorrow. I want to see the market also down for this play as well, though.
Yeah, that would be an awesome move. And Mike, whenever we go over to the book map here on Microsoft, there was a lot of potential on this one today. I know you mentioned that there was a lot of volatility and a lot of moves on that low of day. And you can see on book map here, I'm circling a lot of these big spots that intraday, if you guys are day trading, you can see all these big supports on the chart, and they were giving out nonstop. And once we got to even some of the bigger levels, you can see where it would test, start to bounce back up a little bit. But then once we started to actually break and get below there, we saw more downside opportunity. Same thing happened here at the 405 level as well. Consolidated really hard, but once it finally started breaking under there, man, that ended up being a great spot to short that stock, Microsoft. So this is just some of the advantages that you can get with Bookmap. There's tons of fun add-ons and other things that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, Microsoft put options popped up between 600 and like 900% today alone. It was very obvious just by looking at Bookmap that every single time Microsoft started to fall, the buying pressure that was, as you can see, Tom circling on the screen right now, just got wiped out. So it's pretty obvious to see, just complete sell-offs with Bookmap like this. It is awesome. If you are into short-term trading and you have never used Bookmap before, take the leap. Try it out at least for a month. Stocked Up members get a discount anyways. You have to use the first link in the description in the comments down below, though. But it's awesome. Try it out, the Global or Global Plus plan. I think once you try it out, you'll never trade without it. But shout out Bookmap. You guys are awesome, and I love your software. And let's keep on rolling, Tom.
Yeah, let's go. With my next play, I'm actually going into Google. I feel like, Mike, we are very, I guess, bearish on the tech stocks heading into tomorrow, to say the least, right? I feel like everything we're talking about is bearish on tech. QQQ puts, Meta to the downside, Microsoft down. Now Google, I'm actually going to look for this one in both directions. I noticed end of day, a lot of these tech stocks started kind of popping back up. Google actually has a great support that it's holding around 130 to 132. So if we do end up having a good move down and we break under 130, which was around that low of day today, then I'm going to go ahead and look at more puts to the downside. At the same time, though, it's kind of holding support pretty well. So if this support holds up and we see a continued break back above resistance around 133.25, then I'll go ahead and look at more calls to the upside.
Yeah, and Tom, like we've been saying over the past couple days and the past couple weeks, it is all about being adaptable. The market has been booming for months now, but you have to be willing to adapt with the market as it changes. That's the name of the game. Those who adapt survive, and those who don't get ran over. So you already know, and then we do have some upside plays as well. So let's get right into them. So with the momentum plays for today, with the first one, we have ExxonMobil to the upside.
Yeah, Zom is actually doing pretty good in the short term. There's a nice double top today around like 106.30, I guess you could say. If we end up breaking that, I'll look for a nice breakout to the upside and look at those calls.
All right, with the next one, we have GLD also to the upside.
Gold is awesome. I think it was very close to the all-time high, if not even breaking it today. So I'm going to go ahead and look at GLD above 198.40.
All right, and then with the last one, we have TLT for both directions, and how can we not have this one on a Powell day tomorrow?
Oh, exactly, right? And it actually had a good move today. That was an awesome run there at that 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time mark there on the chart where that PMI data came out. But if it ends up running again and breaks this double top end of day around 95.50, I will look at calls. If it ends up dropping under $95, then I'll eye up puts.
All right, so we have the downside level for puts and we have the upside level for calls. This is for TLT. Don't forget about GLD and XOM for upside trades tomorrow. These three stocks are only potential setups if they break the levels Tom listed. If they don't break the levels, don't force the setup. Find something else and, don't waste time trying to force a setup that isn't good, right? Let's find where the money's flowing and let's hit on that hard. So keep these three stocks on your radar for tomorrow, but it's now about that time for today's $1.5 million big money trade of the day, and we are looking at ticker symbol DDOG, Datadog. So today the big money put $1.5 million into the DDOG 120 strike put options that expire on April 19th of 2024. These put options are right at the money. The stock is up quite a bit over the past couple months. It's showing a lot of weakness today. It had increased volume today, and the options have some time to them as well. So overall, I really like the risk reward with this one, and especially if we continue to see a market sell-off, this one can do pretty well, but keep a close eye on it.
Yeah, and this stock is pretty awesome, right? And I'll say this, it's just starting to pull back a little bit. It could actually still be in a longer term uptrend. It could start pulling back to maybe like even 100 or like 105, but that would still kind of constitute like a nice longer term uptrend, right? So just be ready for pullbacks in the short term on a few of these stocks. I think this one is a great example. It's starting to turn over. There's pretty solid resistance overhead, and it's even starting to break support as of today. So really watch that low of day today around like 122. I think if we break under there, could be some great opportunity in the short term.
There we go. And then, Tom, we can't move on without giving a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Mickey, in the Stocked Up trading floor. This person hit it out of the park today with multiple different setups. I know he hit on Meta pretty good, Microsoft, and a whole bunch of other ones. So huge shout out to you, Mickey. Keep up all the amazing work, and shout out to everyone else today who crushed it, as we can see in the profits channel. So great job, everyone. If you guys are new to our channel, consider demolishing that subscribe button. If you do, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. We talk about setups and predictions every single day. We cover charts that you won't really find anywhere else, and we summarize and look through hours of news in a normally 20 to 25 minute video. So consider subscribing and you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. But Tom, do you have any final thoughts heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, yesterday we talked about the market potentially getting a little bit more bearish there, and today it ended up really playing out that way. Some of those moves on that low of day were amazing. Now, end of day today, it's kind of the opposite. The market started running back a little bit, so remember to be adaptable. We talked about a lot of different plays tonight. If you have to, go ahead and rewind those. The oil potential with ZOM is actually pretty good. I like gold, TLT, so go back, rewind it if you guys have to, but other than that, let's go, guys. Keep that risk tolerance tight, and I think in the short term, this volatility is making for some amazing opportunities. It's a great time to be a trader.
Yes, it is, Tom. We've seen so many big moves in both directions. A lot of stocks are moving in some pretty big ways. We have Jerome Powell speaking twice this week, and like you said, it is a great time to be a trader. So thank you all so much for watching, and let's have an amazing rest of the week in the market. And don't forget, you can save using Bookmap using that first link in the description and the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and see you guys tomorrow.